Hi, I'm Terry O'Reilly, founder of OBP Australia, a service for overseas-born professionals looking to either get their first job in Australia or advance their career once they're established in their profession. Welcome to the podcast. Each episode, I'll be talking to an ex-OBP Australia client who's been successful in finding employment in Australia. We'll get to hear about their journey and what advice they have for job seekers. Junaid arrived in Australia in 2015 and is now a well-established business reporting analyst. This podcast is slightly different to most of the interviews I've conducted, as it's not going to focus so much on how to get work and what settlement issues face skilled migrants. We're going to focus more on the opportunities Australia has presented to Junaid and his family, reflecting on culture, community, and life in general. Junaid, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Terry.
No problems. Thanks for joining us. Now, we met quite some time ago and you've been in Australia for 8 years now. How's life?
Life is good. As with everybody, it has its ups and downs. I've gone through a phase where I lost my father. It's under a year now. And I believe that a few things that I had adopted. I'm an avid reader. I was into Stoicism for the last 4.5, 5 years. I do not know whether you believe in divine guidance or you're a spiritual person. Everybody has that to varying degrees. And I believe that I was being prepared for this. So yes, I think that I have learned to live with the loss. Obviously, it cannot be replaced, a person like your father, but I have learned to live with it.
Yes, I did know about your father. We have spoken before, so I'm very sorry for your loss. It's very difficult when we lose loved ones. Now, you seem to be drawing strength on other sources, which is great, and getting you through things. Now, you came here 8 years ago, is that right? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, February of 2015, it was the Cricket World Cup.
Yep.
I can never forget that. I timed it to perfection. I am a bit of a cricket tragic. So when the dates were being decided to arrive on Australian shores, I made sure that it coincided with the World Cup. Coincidentally, we're coming into another World Cup. Time flies.
Yes.
Just a matter of, yeah.
You are a cricket tragic. So how's that panning out? Are you getting involved in cricket in Australia in any way?
I don't know how things are, but cricket has always played a pivotal role. I am a Toastmaster, and the people around me sometimes have to actually come up to me and tell me, enough of those cricketing anecdotes. You sound predictable now, but I can't because it has such a major role in my upbringing, in how the analogies I build, the strengths I draw, and now I'm a community junior cricket coach as well. I'm coaching my son's under 14 team this coming summer. So really looking forward to it. And the idea is to to channelize whatever I learn. I read a lot and I'm into psychology, behavioral psychology, sports psychology, growth mindset, and stoicism. So I like to see my son develop into a responsible and a and an individual with a growth mindset. And I want to see him in a social setting. And what better place than on the cricket field where he interacts with 11 or more players from both sides, different personalities. So it gives me an opportunity not only to integrate into Australian society, but also contribute to the community by passing on the thing that I learn and read.
Do you think that that transition to a new culture, Australia, has been assisted by the fact that Australia and Pakistan are both ex-British colonies, and we have that common sporting thread. Has that been useful at all?
For me, absolutely. I recall when I came over to Australia, whenever I had to connect with anybody, it had to be cricket. That was a great conversation starter. Look, at at a certain time in your life, you're too late to learn about new sports. I know AFL and rugby union league is big in Australia. And I do recall you encouraging me to use that as small talk. Unfortunately, even after 8 years, I haven't been able to develop an affinity for the sport, with all due respect. So I stick to my strengths. I was a tier-away fast bowler. Thanks to my son, I'm now learning the fine art of leg spin. So, which is a bit of a reinvention. But yes, it has helped that this sport, cricket,
So your son's a
is
leg spin bowler, is he?
yes, he protested three seasons
Ah,
ago. 3 seasons ago, he just put his hands up just because his old man was a tier-away fast bowler. He just put his hands up. He said that, I want to have a go at leg spin. And I
has he
said,
got a reliable flipper working?
well, he's working on it. He's got his leg break and he's got his googly, the wrong one, as they call it here. And the flipper, frankly speaking, is the toughest of them all. But with the advent of T20, just when I thought that the spin would be the first casualty of this new format, I think it's the other way around. If you look at the top bowlers in the T20 format, it's the spinners who have made a comeback. And they're not spinning it big. They are just bowling those straighter ones with different trajectories, with different spins and different varieties. I only thought that there were three or four variations, but there are heaps more. So it's work in progress. It keeps my thirst for the game alive.
That's great.
I've got books now that I between seasons I study new forms of coaching, and it's a tug of war between two generations now. He's out to prove a point, and I'm out to prove a point.
How does the teachings of Marcus Aurelius merge with cricket?
It's funny that you picked out Marcus Aurelius because there are three of the main people that the authors that I follow, and Marcus Aurelius is the favorite of Ryan Holiday. I'm a big fan of Ryan Holiday's work. He is responsible of bringing the ancient philosophy of Stoicism into the modern world. A lot of leaders, a lot of sports personalities have read his work, and I think Ryan is responsible for introducing me into Stoicism. So, at one point of time in history, Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man on the planet. He was the philosopher king, as people would call him, and he left a piece of literature which was not meant for public consumption. It was more of a personal journal of a, uh, but his meditations, as they're called, have become a source of light for many generations. So he used to write to create self-awareness, to keep himself honest as a ruler, honest as a human being. So that has come to my rescue. Stoicism's basic philosophy is to concentrate on things that you can control and not to be overwhelmed by the things that are out of your control.
Yes, it's
That's a very
it's
simple.
yeah, that's the basics, yeah, of basis of it. So it's very difficult to argue with that, isn't it? It seems to make a lot of sense, regardless of what your other beliefs are.
Absolutely, it's very simplistic way of putting it, but at the heart of every ideology, be it religious or otherwise, the fundamentals are same. Like life can go away anytime. That's another cornerstone of Stoicism. That at any time you live as if you're already dead. like this moment, 15 minutes that have passed away, I'm not going to get them back. So I'm already dead. So you live your life to the fullest. So you try to make the most of your day with your family, with every passing moment. That's where meditation comes in as well, where you try and be in the moment. That's where journaling comes in, where you create self awareness. So there are two or three things that have helped me. Journaling, I've got three journals that I fill every day. One of them has one line a day and has consecutive 5 years. So if I pick up a page from that journal, each journal has entries of that same day for 5 years. So that's an interesting way of looking at where you were at the same date last year. So reflection and trying to be in the present are
And
cornerstones.
does a journal cover all aspects of your life?
Yes, I was coming to that.
Yep.
I've got three journals. There's this one journal, which is the one line a day. That's a 5 year memory book, basically one line every day. That's just a synopsis or a summary of what I've done that day. Then there's this daily Stoic journal that has Stoic inspired prompts for every day. It's it goes with the Daily Stoic book by Ryan Holiday, and every day I've got a page that reflects on the Stoic lesson for the day. In light of that, I have a morning and evening entry. So that's the second journal. So that's more philosophical. And then the third one is where I log my physical exercise for the day. I also have five alternating prompts from each day. To give you an example, uh, the prompts might be what work did I do? Any noticeable occurrences? What I'm grateful for? What I want to be better at? How am I succeeding? And on the other day, on the alternate day, I have a set of prompts that go like this. Is this essential? Am I progressing? Why am I taking this so seriously? What is my contribution? What death looks like? Do I fear death because I won't be able to do this anymore? So, so I've got this thing that keeps me self-aware, and it's also given me some strength. And I think I have become a lot more calmer in the face of adversity.
So with the journals, do you separate your professional life from your personal, or is it all merged together?
It is all merged. It depends. Like there was this prompt which said any special occurrences. So that special occurrence could be in my personal life. It could be a Toastmasters competition that I've won or lost. It could be me coaching my son during a tough time on the field or with his studies, or my daughter. It could be I'm playing cricket in the backyard with her after she's done some workbooks. When she comes back from school, I feel very happy about it. And I put that as an entry. I actually mentioned that to my daughter so that she gets inspiration to write her own journal. That's
Sure.
my way of encouraging her to write, to get into the habit of writing.
So
A
so
lot of
do
my, yeah, sorry.
so do you think the process of getting it out, the feelings, the ideas, all of that is the key for this, or do you use it more for reflection, reading back on what you've done?
Frankly speaking, I have been doing this for 4 consecutive years now. I just write it and I don't look back. I'll be honest. So for me, at this particular point of time, it's more about unloading and being aware of the immediate circumstances. Like obviously, the way I enter stuff in my journal is the preceding day. So it's pretty fresh and my emotions are pretty fresh and I reflect upon it. And I also, it keeps me self-aware. So you lost it yesterday, so you were angry yesterday. So that tone that you spoke with, you could have done it better. So I'm using it for feedback and reflection. I do not look back on it. The idea is that someday somebody will pick it up. If I've done something in life, they probably would write a memoir inspired by it.
Hmm. So, in its current everyday form, is it private or is it something you share?
No, it's extremely private, and
Yeah.
everybody respects that. I carry it in my travels. I carry it. It was with me when my father passed away, and before he passed away, a year before that, I traveled in the pandemic, and I still had that. And I'm very happy that even through those toughest days, this was with me.
Right. And given that, I mean, life presents us with sliding door moments, what do you think you would be doing if you hadn't emigrated 8 years ago? So maybe think about what Australia has presented to you and perhaps what you wouldn't have had and what you would have had if you'd stayed in Pakistan. I know it's a
I'm
big
ex-
question.
it is a
So,
big question, but uh, yeah, that was why I was gathering my breath because I can go on for a bit, but I just want to do justice. I'll be lying if I am not uh, full of gratitude for this opportunity to be here. I've rediscovered myself. I have connected to my family a lot better, even though my parents were abroad, but I connected better. It's not the geographic distance, it's the heart. It's the mind that needs to be free of all distractions that you can give your undivided attention. Now, I make it a point to call my mom, especially after my father's passing away. Every day I connect with her. Even prior to my father's death, I was regularly in touch with them. You would be surprised when I went to Pakistan for his final rites. Most of the people who knew my father knew my son. They knew him very well because my father used to discuss my son with all of his uh, associates and because he was in the field of teaching, he was a he was a linguist. He he was very conversant in Persian and Arabic, and had trained people in various walks in life in all corporate sectors. And so he had a very wide network, and most of the people that he used to associate with knew about my son, which was very touching and which was also testimony to the fact that I was able to create that space. I had to lead that way. Had I not migrated to Australia, I would not have had that space. First of all, my I came here with my parents' blessings. They knew that I was doing a sacrifice. The sacrifice was to provide a free and a better future to myself and my family. And my mom still believes every day that I've done the right decision, even though there's a huge sacrifice that I have to stay away from my parents. But when she talks to my son and my daughter, and we discuss the lifestyle, and I keep her up to date every day, what I'm up to, and she just feels really happy, and that makes it worthwhile. So the answer is it's given me space, it's given me freedom. Now, space in the sense I worked for some very famous and prestigious blue chip companies without taking their names. One was a global giant petroleum company, and the other one was probably the world's leading beauty product retailer and manufacturer. But the environment over there did not leave much after work. Remember going to office, and there were occasions where I stayed at the office for overnight, all-nighters. I remember taking a shower, dropping my son to school, and coming back to work again. Being a finance professional, the joke is that I used to have black hair. It's quite grayed out now. So I tend to, even though it's hereditary, but I blame it on my profession. But I think I might have had a few lesser strands of gray. But I think with the workaholic and the long working hours, I wasn't able to give that much attention to my family once I was home. It was more of me passively watching and flipping TV channels. My health wasn't that great. I grew up playing cricket and badminton, but after marriage and the long working hours, and then you have a cultural thing in Pakistan where you have to have these late night weddings and social commitments from both sides of the families. So I really wasn't living the life that I was reading about. The little time that I had for reading, I had some good mentors over there who taught me visioning to live life with purpose, with a plan to achieve something. I had these visions. I had this idea of spending my life deliberately, but I wasn't spending my life deliberately. So I came to Australia in the first few months where I was looking for a job. My mom called me up and said, "Hey, have you heard about Toastmasters? While you're having this time, you might get into a phase where you might be a little upset, you might get overwhelmed, get distracted by adversity. So why don't you join Toastmasters?" The irony was that in Pakistan they had Toastmasters as well, but I'd never heard of it, and my mom mm, did go there, but it was only in Australia that I actually took her advice and went to this, and I'm still part of that same club, Bruce Toastmasters in Belcon in Canberra.
Yeah, Toastmasters is a great opportunity to speak, of course, to get confidence, and a lot of my clients actually use it as a way to practice, and it's a wonderful thing to do. Just on the immigration, and I'm sure you've had conversations with your son about your decisions to emigrate. Um, what does he think about it all? Has he been back? Does has he got a deep understanding of his roots? What's happening along those lines culturally?
It's funny. He's now a teenager. He's just turned 13. So I have to take all of his feedback with a pinch of salt. At his age, you've been through it as well, Terry, that his responses are very reactive, defensive, and sometimes disproportionate to what the query is.
Hmm.
Like I might be discussing that, you want to bowl that ball short, not that short, a fuller length, and he might just bring up something, how much stress I have these days, how much pressure we have as a teenager. Everything is just disproportionate. It's a good thing that I read a few books on child psychology, so I know where that is coming from. It's just his chemistry and biology is just he's going through a phase of rebirth. His brain is going to get rewired until he's 22. So I'll just have to give him that space. But yes, this topic does come up. Sometimes he uses it to to justify some of his behavior. And I do feel that initially he went very quiet. He wasn't expressive. Now he came here when he was just 4 years old, and he was looked after by his grandparents, both sides, and he was very close to his aunt as well. And my wife and I were both professionals, and he used to spend a lot of time at the daycare. So he was exposed to a corporate environment, but yet he had people that pampered him a lot. So when he came over here, everything, it was just the three of us. So he did went through a phase where he went extremely quiet and he did not express himself. But believe where we were successful were that we maintained our ties. Thanks to technology, we were able to keep in touch constantly with our family. They made a few trips as well, and we made a few trips uh, after migrating as well. The pandemic did interrupt that, and slowly and gradually, I think he's come to appreciate the liberties, the freedoms that Australia provides. Nothing is perfect. There's some cultural things that he still does not agree with, and we completely support him for having his own opinions.
And what are his ties to Pakistan, do you think? Culturally, linguistically, is that has that continued, or has there been
Yes,
a
if
yeah?
yes, I think he has kept the cultural part of it alive. When we have the festivals of Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, he does make it a point that he participates in all of those cultural festivals. He's not shy to wear his cultural clothes. He is very proud of it. He does not feel peer pressure to conform with the people who are around him. And frankly speaking, uh, most of the people, most of the kids at school, they appreciate cultural diversity. At least in the school that he goes to, they celebrate. Everybody knows what the festivals are and what the occasions are. Even when there's a cricket match, between the traditional rivals, India and Pakistan, they played in a encounter a couple of weeks ago in the Asia Cricket Cup tournament, and they're due to play on the 14th of October. We've all booked our calendars. We've all made our plans to sit together and watch the game. And he just wears the Pakistani attire when he's watching the game, which I like. He doesn't have to do that. I don't do that. But yes, he enjoys the cuisine. He enjoys the language of his own accord. He's
And what about when Australia plays Pakistan? What's happening there?
Look, it's a win-win situation for both of us. I know. The average is always support Australia, and my friends ask me this question a lot, and I say, look, mate, what a luxury to have. It's a win-win situation for me. Either way, I win. And thanks to the Big Bash, and thanks to my close connection to the cricket fraternity over here, I thoroughly enjoy such encounters. My daughter, on the other hand, is a completely different story. Like, just to finish my last point, out of his own accord, my son has started studying uh, poetry in Urdu. I did not. I did not. I'm not good in poetry. I do dabble in poetry and literature in English, but maybe it's in his genes. His grandfather was pretty good with Urdu, Persian, and Arabic, so he likes reading Urdu and Persian poetry, and he's dabbled into a few verses of his own. So maybe it's again it's the nourishment he gets from the environment. I did not see him develop this in Karachi, with all due respect. It's not because environment is very important, and I think over here we found that environment. Both myself, my wife, and my kids, they found the environment where there's breathing space, where you're not judged. You're free to pursue whatever field you want to, and you're not judged for it. Societal pressures are a bit less. You've got more options. And once you're free, with a free and relaxed mind, now this is a little bit of my coaching thing coming in. When I ask a player to go in the field, I ask him to play with freedom and with a relaxed mind. This is not the time to consciously work on a tweak in your technique. No, you let your muscles be relaxed, whether you're a bowler or a batsman. All the deliberate practice is in the nets. During the match, you just need to relax, and your muscle memory and your subconscious mind takes over. And I think the relaxed atmosphere, the clean environment, and people not judging you all the time has helped my whole family.
That's really, really good advice, Junaid. And also advice from all the great coaches as well is to be in the moment and let all that practice do itself. I think if you're thinking about doing something, you're not in the flow of what you should be doing. So letting the body take over is a great piece of advice there. So thank you for sharing all of that with us, and I'm sure your parents are very proud of what you've achieved, and even though it's been difficult at times, and your father was clearly very proud of you, given that he talked about your son at length with his friends and so on. So that's all really wonderful stuff to hear. Is there any, just finishing up, do you have any advice for somebody who is perhaps about to arrive in Australia in a similar position to what you were in 8 years ago, dealing with all those butterflies, the uncertainty, the stress? What would you say to somebody in that position?
Hmm. Sometimes we are too preoccupied with preconceived notions. We read the newspaper, we see the news. So, depending where you are, most of the time, bad news sells. It's always the adverse part of stuff that gets reported. Now, when I was back in Pakistan, sometimes there were reports of discrimination, you know, in the aftermath of some global events. Now, these things got reported over there because it was an anomaly. Australia perhaps does not have that many instances. No place is perfect, and not everybody is an angel in every society. We all have some people who are just have biases and prejudices, and it comes out. So sometimes you come with a preconceived notion that, maybe we're not welcome, maybe we will be discriminated against. I would tell them, come here with an open mind. Now, before I even had the thought of migrating, my wife, she graduated from a university in Tasmania, and she was already halfway on her way to having her PR. She was well on her way, but then she got married. She liked to be close to her family as well. She discussed the chances of us moving to Australia. I said that I want to be close to my family. She wanted to be close to our family, but then the security circumstances in that part of the world began to deteriorate. It started affecting the upbringing of my children and myself to a certain extent. So she said, "Look, why don't you at least have a look at Australia?" So I came back in 2012 before I migrated. At that point, there was no intention of migrating. It was just a tour to Australia for sightseeing. And once I arrived to the shores, there was something about it that was very welcoming. It did not overwhelm you. Now, I've traveled a bit myself. The first time I went to England, I went there on a cricketing tour when I was in college. And sometimes you get intimidated by a cultural shock. But in the moment I arrived in Sydney, I did not feel that way. And I went to some four cities. I went to Gold Coast, I went to Tasmania, Melbourne, and Sydney. And everywhere I went, I found people who were genuine. They smiled at you when they made eye contact. They would give you a good day. I hope I got that accent right. I still struggle with it. It's more good afternoon and good morning. I just haven't been able to master that one. My kids do a better job. So, and if you're in struggling as a tourist, they will go out of their way to guide you, and they would guide you in such a manner that it's in your best interest. So the first advice I would give is that come here with an open mind. You're traveling about many kilometers, you're doing a sacrifice. Do not come here with preconceived notions. Make up your own mind. right? Secondly, do not try to oversell yourself.
What do you
I
mean
keep,
in a professional
yeah,
context, or
I maybe overselling is not the right word. People are very judgmental. Like my experience, people may disagree with me, but when you're being judged constantly, you come up with you are very defensive and you try to always say that you know more than you do so that the other person does not feel that you are underqualified or you don't know your stuff. So one thing that they do carry over themselves, if somebody asks you a simple question that do you know this, they'll say, yes, I'm very good at this, but not only can I do this, I can perhaps, like, let's talk about Excel. Like, I'm not only good with Excel, I can make a financial model that can be a business case of selling so many million worth of SKUs. So the thing is, when you do that, people get expectations. Now, I know where that is coming from because in some working atmospheres in the subcontinent, if somebody would say that, look, boss, I have tried, but I don't think I can do it, they become judgmental. Or maybe they're perceived as judgmental. And people, when they do that, they get caught out. The first advice I would say to any aspiring person coming to Australia for his first job is just be honest. If your supervisor or your manager asks you something, tell them what their capability is. Tell them that, I gave it your best shot, and tell them upfront that you're struggling with it and you need help, rather than telling them, no, I'm top of it, nothing's wrong. And on the 11th hour, just before the deadline, you come up and say, look, boss, I'm struggling here. And then you lose credibility.
mm,
And over here, what I believe is honesty is the best policy. At the risk of sounding cliched, they will support you if you come to them for help. But if you try to, you know, fool them or not being sincere with them, then you get caught out, and then
it,
you're written off.
even if you're just doing it to try and impress and to put your best foot forward and show them what you can do. I mean, managers generally here uh, actually like it when they know what you can't do as well, so they can provide the relevant support. And in some jobs, like you said before, telling them at the 11th hour can cost them money, it can cost them time, so that can backfire in the end. Correct?
Yes, totally. I totally agree with you. And this is pretty much common sense. But I tell you, there's a cultural aspect
Mm.
to it. Why we're discussing this over here is because you asked me if there's somebody, some compatriot that's coming here, what's the best advice that I'll give him? I'll give him because, and I don't blame them. I've worked in that environment as well. People just won't say no to you. If you ask them to do something, yes, boss, done. It shall be done, right? So they struggle to say no. Now, it's a very complex thing. It might be cultural, or it might be that people are highly judgmental. We the environment over there is that there's just no room for you to just come across as somebody who is less than perfect, which essentially is wrong. Human beings are flawed, and you know that's how you learn.
So what do you do in an environment where the culture is to say, yes, I can take that on board, I can do it, even if you can't? Do you get help from somebody else, from colleagues, or how do you actually end up um, doing
Look,
what the boss has
uh,
asked?
look, and it's not only them. The seniors also are highly judgmental. You get that vibe from them and from your colleagues as well. There's always the impression that somebody's breathing down your neck, that the moment you find caught out, he'll cash in on that.
Is it more competitive, you think,
It's not competitive, it's more cutthroat.
or
Competitive is
cutthroat?
healthy. Competitive is healthy. Cutthroat is not healthy. It has an element of being toxic around it. So I think, and again, as I've said, it depends from organization to organization. I've been fortunate to work in an organization, but even but there's a cultural aspect to it as well. Like if I am going to Toastmasters or if I'm playing casual badminton, I would be the first person to go there to an expert and ask him, "Hey, I'm struggling over here. I had a look at you, and how can I get better at this?" Without any qualms, without him, without the feeling of being judged. That's the crucial word. I don't feel judged over here. I feel very free to be myself.
And if anything, in this culture, if you ask somebody for their advice or opinion or how to do something, they actually feel good about that because they're put in the place of being more expert. So in that sense, they feel good about you because you've made them feel good in many ways.
Yeah, totally. I think it takes a lot of pressure off. You don't have to be pretentious. Like what I feel is that I'm comfortable in my skin. I do not have to be dishonest. I don't have
Right.
to lie. So it takes a lot of pressure. Imagine all this baggage accumulating and the stresses that come with it, and then psychosomatic aspects. It affects health, creates stress. So as I said, if somebody's coming over here, I would seriously request them that come here with an open mind and try to be honest with yourself and try to be honest with the people. I know it's a different and working environment over there. Sometimes you have to be not honest. Let me put it that way. But over here, try to be honest,
Mm.
and things will smoothen out. You will get used to the fact that people over here will understand.
That's really good advice, Junaid, and probably a good spot to finish up. So thank you very much for sharing all that with the listeners, and congratulations again on settlement here and the transition you've made. You've done an excellent job with both your professional life and with the family. So great work, and it's been great knowing you. We've known each other for quite some time now. So thanks again, and keep in touch.
Look, I know you've almost done a wrap, but I would not end this interview without mentioning the role that you have played. Now, I'm not doing this to patronize you. It's your podcast. But when I said being comfortable, one of the few first friends that I made in Australia happens to be you. And that was possible. You were my first flavor of how to interact with Australians. So I'm really grateful. The initial interactions gave me a lot of confidence. I learned a lot how to interact with professionals. And then, once again, honesty, transparency, and being candid was the key. So, thank you very much for helping me in those formative years. And you have come to be a friend of mine over the years. And it's a privilege to have known you. And I hope to continue this relationship.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Junaid. I'm glad that our connection has been useful. And again, thanks very much, and take care.
You too. Take care. Thanks for having me.
OBP Australia provides guidance and support with job applications and approaching employers, industry awareness, interview coaching, and language and communication. You'll also be introduced to your professional peers already working in Australia, so you can get the lowdown on what's happening in your industry or profession. If you're looking for guidance and support to find your next job, email me at terry@obpaustralia.com.au. Let's talk.